Hey everyone, I'm Eric. This is my wife Julie. We are the Blended Life, and today
we're talking all things acceptance in your blended family. And I think it's really going to be helpful, so stay tuned.
So welcome back. Let's go ahead and just get right into it.
All things about acceptance.
Accepting what?
Everything.
Just accepting it.
Well, I think that we talk a lot about like forgiveness and swallowing sand. And, the truth is we have really hard things that we come up against in blended families and blended family marriages. Normal marriages also have really hard struggles. And so I want to present this idea of acceptance as like kind of a superpower, if you will.
I will. Let's
do
this. Yeah, I mean, what do you mean by a superpower? I mean, what does...
Because it's hard.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, and if you read the little bio about this video, we are all for...
I'm listening to it on a podcast, thank you.
Yeah, but we're all for acceptance, right? Like
right.
When it has to, like we want our opinions to be accepted, our parenting styles to be accepted, our beliefs, our values. We want our kids to be accepted. We're all for acceptance when it is
in our favor.
Our favor.
Right.
But when it's do unto others and we want it for ourselves, but it gets sticky when it's what's required of us to give others, that we really have a hard time with. And this is where conflict happens because there's a difference in parenting styles, right? There's a difference in opinions. There's a difference in sometimes values and beliefs of how things should be. There's a difference in kids.
Well, I think that's where it all starts, as kids, for kids is... This is one of those things that teaches you to share with others, play with others, how it's like adolescence, that it's something that we would assume that we'd all learn, but we don't necessarily. Like, for instance, I'm the oldest of 3 children. You are the oldest of no children.
Well, I have a half brother,
right?
But we weren't raised.
But
together.
You didn't have to learn to share, compromise. I feel like that's the small little fundamental building blocks to getting into something like this that we all could be learning as children, or we could be teaching our kids to do now to help set them up for success as they become adults. And I think as parents, we probably think more of in the now. I know I'm getting off a little subject real quick, but we're thinking more in the now, rather than setting our kids up for the future. Little things like this, teaching our kids to accept one another, value one another's differences, is something that I think starts to sprout in a kid and goes through, their whole lives and starts to change as they become adults. And so I deal with stuff like this differently than you deal with stuff like this differently. But I had a different type of upbringing because, again, I was the oldest of 2, and I had to deal with stuff like this, whereas you, being the oldest of none, didn't necessarily have to deal with stuff like this on a daily basis. So it might be harder for you. I mean, it might just come naturally to you too, and your parents could have raised you differently. But at the end of the day, we all have different types of upbringings that kind of set us up for this.
Yeah, I will agree that being an only child, in a sense,
oldest of none,
the oldest of none, made it really hard to navigate stuff like conflict. I didn't learn how to do conflict with an equal and not, you can't kick your sibling out to the curb and not, they have to live with you. You guys have to kind of figure out how to cohabitate and come back from arguments or hurt or
there's little
whatever.
things that we still work on in our marriage from that, because you and I both do this differently. I navigate this differently than you do. Not
Well, how do you navigate it? Help our listeners understand that.
well.
How do you see that I navigate it?
Well, the biggest thing is that when it comes to conflict, you and we talk a lot more than we probably did in our previous relationships. We explain and express, differently. We deal with conflict a lot differently, where I need space. You never needed space as a child. You had all the space you wanted.
It was great.
You know what I mean?
It was so good.
If you got into an argument with yourself, I
didn't ever argue with myself. I didn't. But you know what? Having said that, I grew up with tons of conflict around me.
Okay.
All my parents fought.
Yeah, differently.
So I was an observer of conflict, and then I had my stepdad, wasn't necessarily the calmest person in the world. So there was a lot of conflict between him and I.
Right.
Specifically, my mom and I didn't really fight a ton. And my grandfather lived with us for most of my childhood. So I had him in the home, and him and I got along great. Like, it was just my stepdad and I in conflict a lot. But I was an observer of conflict quite often. So I think I just I didn't want that. And then I got into a marriage that was all conflict all the time.
Ours?
No.
I'm just kidding.
But what happened was, being in that marriage, we're totally off topic here, but being in a marriage that was conflict from sun up to sundown, it was exhausting, and it was so upsetting that I don't want that. So I just choose maybe not to talk about things in the moment. And like, if I know it's going to lead to conflict, I've had enough from childhood to, until we got I don't want any more conflict. Like,
you have enough to share with all the listeners too.
Yeah. Like, I'm conflicted it out. I'm over it. I don't want to do it. It doesn't interest me. It doesn't excite me. Yeah. I don't get off on it. I'm just over. Like, I don't want it.
You're talking about this, and then you ask me, how do I deal with it differently? And I'm thinking, I spent a lot of time in timeout as a child. And you guys, think about this.
Can I put you on timeout?
I mean, that's kind of what I do when we get in an argument, though, if you think about it. I'm having an epiphany as we're talking about this, because when we get into an argument, or a heated conversation, and it gets to that point to where, we're at a crossroad. What are we going to do? I need that time to myself. I need time to cool down and figure things out. And I'm like, damn, this stems back to my childhood.
It's how you were taught to cope.
I spend a lot of time in time out as a child,
But you know what? That's not even.
So I'm going to need you to spank me now.
Okay.
But
pull
you guys,
down your pants. Let's do this right now.
As we're talking about this, though, you guys, Daddy. Oh wait. Anyways,
he's like turning. He's so smiling.
Hey, as I'm talking about this, though, are the punishments that we are handing down to our children setting them up for future? Because again, spending a lot of time in time out, that's how I cope. I need time to myself.
It's a habit.
I need time to think about it and reflect on what I've done. And, did I use the right words? And time to cool down.
Yeah. And I think it's healthy. I think it's just, for me, I never learned that you can come back from that. So for me, it felt like, how Eric and I worked through this, because we have different styles of coping and conflict management, if you will. So in early on, and I think we've shared this before.
20 times.
But he would leave, not even say anything, not tell me. He wouldn't communicate that he was leaving. He would just leave the conversation, and then
it wasn't necessary that I would leave.
He would walk out the door.
Sometimes I would just
get in his car
or go downstairs.
This is early on, before we even were living together.
Oh, damn.
Super early. And then wouldn't text me back, wouldn't answer my phone calls, and so
I just put my phone away.
He totally ghosted me, and then I didn't know if he was coming back. My wounds that I carried over from childhood were I felt abandoned, right?
Element of surprise.
Are you coming back? Are you not coming back? Are we breaking up? is this like I had no idea where we stood, and like just left me, and it felt very like abandonment issues.
You
And
felt like Adele, right?
I felt like Adele.
Hello from the other side.
So we had to have kind of a talk. Like I can't deal with that. Like if this is how this is going to go, like it's not going to work. Like I can't deal with that. So a good compromise now is, you know, if he has to remove himself, like at least just tell me I'm going, and I'll come back. Like just communicate. And then I've learned to appreciate, which is different. I've learned to accept. Let's keep it on topic. I've learned to accept that this is what he needs, and it's probably a good thing because he doesn't say things that are hurtful or.
Well, and I don't leave and go home now. I stay home and just go downstairs now.
I remember one time you went and parked at our hospital. That's right next to my house for a while.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that until you told me. I'm like, where have you been? Because it was
at
hours.
The hospital.
You were charging a car or something like that.
Getting my heart fixed.
But I'm just saying, like, it's you have to communicate your needs, and you also have to communicate your limitations. Like, for me, it's a limitation. Like, I couldn't deal with that, but how can we both win?
But
right?
you also had to communicate to me that you couldn't deal with that, which you did. You did that very well, and I had to step up and be like, look, I understand. I hear you. Now I need to change my actions to honor you.
Right, but then how do we both win, right? How do you get the space you need, and how do I not feel abandoned? Because the truth is, when you would leave, it would be better for you, but then
it wasn't good for you.
You come back, and I'm like 10 times more pissed than when you left. Like now the argument just got way worse. Like now you're walking into like hell, right? Because I'm like it's
and
worse.
Now I live with her, you guys. Here we are.
You don't really do that anymore.
No, we don't. But we also
don't really argue.
No, we worked kind of through all of our stuff, and a lot of it is just communication, working out the kinks,
and accepting each other.
That's it.
So let's get back to the acceptance piece, because
is that the topic tonight?
It is acceptance.
Nice.
I think it's accepting each other, and it's really, really important. So there's how I wanted to go about this topic of acceptance is I want to first define what it means what acceptance means. And then I want to talk about why it's important, and when you need to accept things, and then how. So we're going to kind of go through all sides of this issue, and I really think it's a superpower because it's the first step in being able to bridge back connection, to help yourself, to help your family.
Well, I think it's a great tool to saving relationships too, because if you can accept someone else, and you can accept who they are or what they're doing or what they're about, and you can be confident in who you are, but accept who other people are around you, then we can do a lot more with that, because a lot of us cling to people that are a lot like us, our best friends, our girlfriends, our guy friends.
Your girlfriends.
Your girlfriends,
hey,
my guy friends, they are very similar to us in certain ways. And as I've gotten older and I've matured more and I've learned to accept people with differences, it's actually even more fun to be around people who aren't like me at all. Like we might share the same sense of humor or something, but one of my best friends, Richard, like him and I have a totally different life and lifestyle. But him and I, when we get together, we have such a great time because we are two totally different walks of life, like completely different walks of life, but we have just a great time because I accept who he is. He accepts who I am, and then he just accepts it.
He just accepts it. He just takes it.
It and accepts it. Isn't that what tonight's topic's about?
Yes, but I think you're talking about it in a different way.
Oh, I'm going to go ahead and send this to him.
Okay.
Okay.
So the definition of acceptance, I went ahead and Wikipedia'd this.
Yeah, look at you.
I know. So the definition I really liked, how there's
how
multiple
many definitions
ones.
are there?
There's a lot of different definitions.
Which
for
definition
acceptance.
is this of?
So
Acceptance?
Acceptance.
To accept.
No. Well, like the acceptance, right? Like the the action of receiving. I'm not talking about the action of receiving something like
Okay.
a gift.
Yes.
That's like one definition of
Okay.
acceptance. Okay. But relationally.
Are they spelled differently?
No.
I feel like this is something we'd learn in third grade. There's like different types of spelling, like there, and there. They're all spelled differently, but they all have different meanings. So there's different types of acceptance, but there's no different types of spelling for it.
Right.
Welcome to English, my friends.
You can
This
think
is
about
wild.
this in time out later.
I'm going to have to. Put the bar of soap in my mouth.
Yep. No. So the definition of acceptance that relationally I thought would be most applicable to all of us blended family people is acceptance is the willingness to tolerate a difference or an unpleasant situation. So the willingness, and I like the word willingness, because you can't just simply tolerate something. You need that willingness part first. Does that make sense? I know I just totally don't laugh at me.
If you guys are watching this on YouTube, you understand why I'm laughing. She just acted out the word willingness.
But it's a really important word. We just want tolerance so much, but we're not willing to do it. And so I think it all stems from having an open heart and having an open mind and also having the bigger picture in mind. We always talk about, is this a hill you're willing to die on? Most 99.9% of the time, it's not. So let me say that again. Willingness, the willingness to tolerate a difference or even an unpleasant situation. Who's experienced an unpleasant situation or a difference in your blended family? Raise your hand.
Why are you raising two hands?
So at looking at that definition, why is it important to find and have acceptance as part of your identity in your blended family? When people look at you and your blended family, your stepkids, your children, your spouse, your in-laws, do they see you as an accepting person? I really had to take a hard look at this myself. And I would say for some years, no. I'm very hard and I'm very black and white. And I really have a hard time accepting different than me. Do you ever feel like you're like that ever?
I understand why you're like that.
Yeah, but do you feel like you've ever been like that where it's hard to
been like that? Yeah, 100%. I used to be a lot like that, like a lot like that. And like I said, as I've gotten older and I've matured more and my eyes have opened, I've been enlightened to this. It has been life-changing for me because I am more accepting of different people, different types of people, everything around me. I think a lot of it has to do with religion, of just being a Christian. Like, we are called to accept everyone, to love thy neighbor. And it doesn't say your neighbor's just like you. It's
love your Christian neighbor.
No, that doesn't say that.
It just says love your neighbor.
Yeah.
They could be trans, they could be gay, they could be
Aren't those the same thing?
Black, white, purple, polka dot, they could be paralyzed, they could be old, they could be young, they could be Buddhist.
They could be a 40-year-old white single child lady.
Yeah, they could be the 40-year-old virgin next door too. Yeah.
Hey, he's the one that doesn't keep you up at night.
But that is the truth, right? Anyway, I won't go off on the Christianity portion of that.
You already went off on the opposite of all of it.
It's true. Our faith we've matured a lot in our faith, I think, I just want to acknowledge how that's really helped. I don't know how people without God do blended life. I don't.
There's a lot of people that are agreeing with you right now, but there's also a lot of people that are like, girl, you're crazy. Like, they have no idea what it's like.
For me, I couldn't.
Right. And really, if you guys are like, man, I'm struggling with blended life, and that's why I'm listening to this podcast or watching this video, and I don't know what to do with it. I need help. And you've never looked into religion. I'm not trying to be like a Bible thumper here, but I'm like,
Be one.
but I'm like, you know what? Maybe you need to give it a try. Maybe you need to look into it. And I'm not saying jump full head first into this, but go find a good church. Ask some of your friends if you have a few friends, and just try it out. Listen. There's. I've never gone to church and gotten something bad out of it.
Yeah, you never. It's like me and working out. I've never regretted a workout.
Yeah,
you don't ever regret going.
No, I regret waking up in the morning, but once I'm at church, I'm good. And it starts my day off, and I'm like, man, this message wasn't intended for me, but it talked to me. Like,
yeah,
I got so much out of it. And you'll find little nuggets, and sometimes it might fall flat. I haven't had that in a really long time, but it's a great place if it's something you have never tried out. Maybe just be open-minded and give it a try. I mean, hell, you're listening to our podcast right now.
Hell,
it's a place.
And if you have questions about God or Jesus or the faith thing, hell, you can write into us. Also, we're happy to talk with you guys about any of that kind of stuff and how it's helped us. And
that being said, too, if you are like, you know what, that's not for me at all, or maybe you've tried it, and you grew up in church and you're just like, it's not for me. I'm listening to this podcast because I don't know what to do. Well, then this dear wife of mine also does blended family coaching, and you help women.
Yeah, I help women in blended families.
Well, I guess you help men too, but you specialize in women. And
yeah, I help both. But man, it's really hard to navigate all those moving pieces. And what happens is we all feel like we're just lost in the chaos, right? And we have like we're in this chronic state of upset and crisis. And that's how we feel. One crisis to the next, one upset to the next. And that's our cycle. And it's exhausting and it's draining, and we want to give up. We want to give up because it's not sustainable. You cannot live forever in a upset and chronically upset and panic mode. It doesn't.
And feeling exhausted too.
You can't
feeling
do that.
Exhausted is a form of depression. You're just like, you feel depressed all the time.
Yeah, you don't even want to come home to your own house sometimes, because your house, like, nothing good awaits you. Your stepkids don't like you. Your bio kids are acting out. You and your husband are fighting, and it just like, I will do anything so I don't have to be home. And that's not good. But this is normal. We all go through these seasons in our blended family life, I feel. And so what I help people figure out is, how do you find peace in the chaos? Because you can't control the chaos that happens around you, but you can find peace in it. You can find the eye of the storm and sit in that, and not be caught up in the cows that are flying around and the houses that are flying around. I'm referencing The Wizard of Oz.
I'm very aware, Dorothy. But also, you kind of do help people control the situation without controlling, without manipulating. You help them basically control it by controlling themselves. And if they take control of themselves, they change everyone around them.
Yeah, because when you show up differently, right? When you show up differently, when you can control yourself and you figure that out, then all your relationships are forced to shift. They have to. You can't be different and have relationships remain the same. And so it's, I don't know. If you're interested, email me at becomingheardnow@gmail.com. It's becomingheardnow@gmail.com. I always...
You say it twice. We're going to need a cleanup on aisle 3.
I do, because what if somebody's trying to write it down and then...
We need becoming heard now on aisle 3 at gmail.com.
I always say it twice just in case somebody's writing it down and they missed it. But reach out. I'm offering for now. My schedule is filling up. Praise God. That's a God thing.
Yeah, you're kidding. Crazy.
So... For now, I don't know, in March 20th or 21st of 2022, breakthrough session 60 minutes is free, and I'm offering that up, and I'll offer up free sessions as long as my schedule allows. I might have to eventually charge for breakthrough sessions, depending on demand. So email me. Let's see if I can be of use to you. I would love that. That's our mission with this podcast, is to keep families together. With the work I do, to keep people sane and to figure out how you could, because the problem is, if you don't figure it out in this, blended family life, you may blow it up and leave and find another one. And chances are you're going to show up as the same person in the next situation you find yourself in. So it's something to work on. And then
let's just love the families we have now.
Yeah. Well, grass may be greener, but there might be like nasty bugs.
Dog poop.
Yeah. So let's talk about why acceptance is important. And Eric kind of touched on this earlier, but acceptance really allows you to be flexible so that you don't break. Because when you're so hard and so like you're just so, you can't accept anything. It's your way or the highway. And so you're going to be upset about everything because everyone's different than you. You're going to break. Like at some point you're going to break and the family's going to break. And so what acceptance does is it allows that flexibility to be adaptable, to bend so you don't break. And that really is how you get through blended family life. If you cannot learn acceptance, chances are you're going to have a very hard, rocky road. Yeah. And I'm not talking about the ice cream.
Rocky road?
Yeah, right? Like, and that's what you were alluding to earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that is a game changer, because when you can accept those around you, it allows for better relationships. It allows for better family life, because there's a good chance, especially in a blended family, that there are multiple different walks of life in your household, and you probably don't get along with every single one of them. You probably don't see eye to eye with every single one of them. If you think about it right now, you probably have a better relationship with one or two of them than you do with the others. You know, you might be closer to your stepchild than you are to your own child, and that's just because we're different. So if you can learn to accept everyone for who they are and what they are, but then we can also teach that to one another and we can teach that to everyone else, then all of a sudden we have a big accepting family that just gets along great, you know, or I think great's a far stretch. That gets along pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And, you know, I was talking earlier about women who just feel, well, or anyone in blended families, how you feel like you're always upset, right?
Right.
This constant state or chronic state of upsetness.
And it feels like depression. You're
just upset about everything all the time.
You don't want to come home, but then you got nowhere to go. But then just everything
is upsetting.
Everything just feels exhausting and depressing.
Well, and what I want to say about that is, listen, that's a choice. You can absolutely choose that for yourself. You know, I'm just going to live upset. I'm going to be upset about everything. And that's how I'm going to do life. And you can see how that works out for you. But also you have acceptance, and acceptance is also a choice. And if you can lean into acceptance, you cannot accept and be upset at the same time. They cannot coexist. So if you're truly acceptance, like leaning into acceptance, if you're truly accepting of someone or a circumstance, whatever, it's not going to upset you. So if you are tired of being upset, you better start learning how to accept. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because it's the only thing that's really going to free you, right?
Yeah.
That and a 60-minute breakthrough session.
Okay. My husband. Thank you.
I'm here. I'm your fluffer.
You're my fluffer. I want to talk about what acceptance is not, though, because I think when we hear acceptance, when it's us that does need to do the accepting. You know, like I said, we all want to be accepted.
We all want to be accepted. We want everyone to like us and think that we're the greatest things.
Yeah, you pick up what we're laying down all day long.
They actually kind of talked about this. Pastor Gina was talking in church today, and she said, you ever walk into church, we've all done it, and you judge those around you, and you feel judged by those around you, and they're better than me, or I'm better than them, or you look at everyone else and everyone else's circumstances. Sizing everyone up, and you feel like everyone's doing that to you. But at the end of the day, we all wish everyone would size us up and then give us a couple more sizes, because we just want to feel that.
Yeah.
You know, but if we can learn to do that to others and stop stop worrying about ourselves and our greatness and start showing it on the outside. So start giving people, like, if you want to be accepted, give reason to be accepted. Don't be fake about it, but let's give people a reason to like us, a reason to, if we are giving to other people, and we are loving other people, and we are accepting of other people, that is going to come back tenfold, because people are going to see that, and they are going to feel that, and they're going to feel accepted by you, and it's going to change, and they're going to be like, man, they are really nice to be around. They're very pleasant to be around.
And it sparks that for them to want to do it to other people.
Yeah.
Like, I've been accepted. I see the value in it, so I'm going to be more accepting. And I think that's a really good pay it forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels really, really good. But I think when we think of the word acceptance, when it comes to the work we have to do in accepting others and accepting things we don't like and accepting situations we don't like and people, all of that, here's something that will help you. Acceptance does not equal agreement. Just because you're accepting of something, or you just make the decision you're going to accept it, right? It doesn't mean you agree. Same with, like, we talk about communication. The goal of communication isn't agreeance. The goal of communication is connection. I would say the same thing here. The goal of acceptance isn't that you agree with each other. The goal of acceptance is quite the opposite. But what it does is it's all about connection. You can connect with someone if you can accept them, right? You can't really connect with that you refuse to accept. But that's how we do blended family life. We're like, where are all these connections we want? There's a lot of broken connection. There's a lot of conflict. There's also probably a lot of non-accepting happening too.
You know what? It's a lot like social media. I feel like a lot of people really have this problem on social media, and this could be your test, if you go scroll through your feeds right now, how many people are you following that you agree 100% with? How many people have been deleted over the last couple years because of acceptance and because not seeing eye to eye? Now, I don't spend a lot of time
Unfriend.
That's it. So now, if you can go through, and here's a big test to your acceptance, because there's a lot of people on social media.
Acceptance level, dun, dun, dun.
Well, if you can go through and you can be like, you know what? Anytime I see someone that I have connected with, or that I have a relationship with, anything. We were friends in elementary school, we caught back up after 20 years, but we see differently politically, or we see differently religiously, or we see differently in parenting. Next time they post something, who cares what it is? Just like it for them. Just give them a thumbs up or a heart or something, and just accept them for them. And
it doesn't mean you have to agree with them.
Doesn't mean you have to agree with it.
Because you're liking something doesn't mean that you're agreeing with it. And I think this is a really big thing for people.
Well, and a lot of people will, if they don't agree with it, and I'm just going to call my mom out for a minute, they'll write about it. They will get into an argument with it. They will create something off of it.
And do you think that breaks connection or builds connection?
Absolutely tears connection apart.
And do you think anybody ever like, oh my gosh, I see the light?
Eye-opening. No, it usually turns into an unfriend, a disconnect, a separation.
It causes conflict.
It causes conflict, and it causes hurt in both of you.
And that's no different than how we do blended family marriage or life.
The only difference is it's behind a screen. The only difference is that you aren't actually facing this problem in real life. It's like it's a coward's way out. I'm not saying all people that have done this and do this are cowards, but it feels like the cowardly way out. If this was in real life and we were walking down the aisle at Target and ran into our friend and they were doing whatever it is that they're doing, are we going to sit there and call them out and have this conversation with them in real life? No, you're going to put on this fake little smile and you're going to be like, hi, Susan, how are you? Okay, see you later. Then you're going to go talk about it behind Susan's back.
See, that I can't handle.
This is
I
what I'm
cannot
saying,
live
but
in
that's what social media
two-face.
is.
It's so
Not for
horrible.
everyone. Some people are like, no, I'll tell them straight to their face. But I'm just saying, like, social media is kind of like the same thing right now. So that's your big test. If you guys feel like, I might struggle in this a little bit, try it out on your social media feed. See how that goes. And start accepting on social media, because that, again, the opposite of being a coward's place of fighting an argument, it could be the easiest way to gain acceptance and to accept other people by just going on there and like, oh man, I don't agree with that. Unless it's like something totally harmful, but I'm just going to like it anyways. I'm just going to give it a heart.
All right, like you
And I'm
hate
gonna move.
tattoos, but somebody like
Just
got a
they're
new tattoo.
they're getting inked up and they're at the tattoo parlor
and
and
they're
you go,
happy. They're excited for themselves.
yeah, and it's just like,
Good for
it's not for
you.
me, but I'm
Right,
just
doesn't
gonna
mean you just because you like it doesn't mean you have to go get
I
tattooed.
think people get the assignment. You guys got the assignment? I think you got it.
Okay.
But it's an easy way to like,
yeah, just
we're going to get this ball rolling.
okay.
The acceptance ball.
The acceptance ball. Well, let's talk about another thing acceptance is not.
What is not?
Acceptance does not equal weakness. In fact,
No, it's actually the opposite,
yep.
right?
And I have an
It takes a
amazing
lot of-
quote that I'm going to post tomorrow on our Instagram.
Quote sounds like a word that is like
Quote.
said with a like a lisp almost. Like a quote.
Yeah.
A quote. It's a quote.
And so I'm not going to say the name. Well, well,
name?
I'm just going to say the quote, and then you can look at our Instagram for credit, because I will butcher this name. I don't know how to say this name at all. But she writes, "It takes a lot of courage to face reality when it's not in your favor." And that is what acceptance is.
One more time?
It is, she says, it takes a lot of courage to face reality when it's not in your favor.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't weakness. Weakness would be to not accept and to leave, or to blow it's easy to stand in non-acceptance. It's really hard to have that willingness to try to see someone else's point of view. It takes a lot of courage to face what isn't going your way. It takes a lot of courage to stand in a space where you're not getting what you want. That's hard to do. And so people think, though, acceptance, like, I'm just supposed to accept. I'm just supposed to roll over. Acceptance isn't rolling over, right?
No.
Rolling over is that we're assuming that acceptance equals agreement, which we already said it doesn't. Acceptance does not mean rolling over. It is not weak. It is a courageous act that ends up making you more flexible so that you don't break and your marriage doesn't break and your family doesn't break.
And those around
that's
you.
much harder.
Those around you don't break or feel hurt, because
Yep.
here's the other thing that goes with that is when someone feels a certain way and you don't agree with the way they feel, they still feel that they are in the right. They are, what's the word I'm looking for? You need to, you need to accept who they are, because that's the way they feel. That's who they are and how they feel.
Validated?
Validated. That's the word I'm looking for.
I'm going to
So-
tattoo this word on your forearm right here
On
so
mine?
you can just
Thanks.
remember to validate me.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but
people feel personally validated, like they validate themselves. And if someone is so stuck in their way that me telling them otherwise, they don't come to me asking me for their opinion, so why am I going to give it to them? The way you feel right now, the way that people feel listening to this right now, we feel the way we feel because that lives within us.
yeah, and
that's
we
how
have reasons.
Yeah.
Our life and our
Oh, I screwed that up. I'm just
that
rambling.
not-
No.
there's good reason for
I
the
think
way
you guys know what I'm
we
trying to
feel.
say, but I feel like I'm just mumbling, like I'm rambling about this. But we all feel strongly of how we feel, and we validate ourselves. And when someone around us doesn't feel the same way as us,
Mhm.
it just, you're like, I don't understand how people can think like that. I don't understand how you can be like that.
Mhm. Well,
you know?
yeah, it's easy to validate ourselves because we lived our life.
That's
We
it's
had our
in us.
experiences. Our experiences and our beliefs inform everything. And it's a vicious cycle. Anyway, that's something.
We might be in the same spots right now, but we all got there from a different path.
That's right. And so what makes sense to me isn't going to make sense to you because you haven't lived the life I've lived.
Well, and that's
you
the
haven't
thing.
seen
Even
what I've
being-
seen.
Even being husband and wife, we oftentimes just accept one another and accept each other's feelings. Those so often I'm just
It's
like,
just easier.
I
I'm
don't-
tired.
but no, listen, there's quite often I'm like, I don't get how like you even come up with that. Like how does your brain even validate that for yourself?
My son feels the same way about
And
me.
you do the same thing and we do the same thing to him. But you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, so it could be someone as close to you as your husband or your wife or your child, and it just lives within us.
Yeah. Yeah, when you don't have traditional upbringings or, especially it's hard because it's nothing that even mimics a movie or a book or like traditions or, we forget that we've all been a lot of different places that informs our beliefs.
Yeah, and at least in a movie or a book, like when you're watching that and you see why someone is the way they are, you're watching a movie.
You get the backstory.
You get the backstory and you see
Yeah.
how they get there.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I understand why this serial killer does what they do, or I understand why this little kid drowns
Right.
innocent kittens because the story
Right, and
led
you don't
them to that.
agree
No,
that
you don't
it's
agree
okay,
with
but you understand how they got there.
it. You accept it.
Well, you accept that
Yeah.
you understand. And I think understanding is a huge part of acceptance. But let's talk about what acceptance is. So we said it's not agreement, and it's not weakness. So acceptance really allows you, when you're not accepting something, you're fighting it, right? You're spending your energy and your time being pissed off or ringing your bell and wearing your sandwich board
Or
and
talking crap to your
proving your
friend or
point.
someone else.
There's a lot of energy wasted when we're not accepting. When we're sitting in judgment, when we're disagreeing, which that's fine. You can disagree, but when you're sitting in judgment and you're just upset because it's not your way or your ideal or your agenda isn't being fulfilled, it's a lot of wasted energy. And what's really cool about acceptance is it frees you and allows your energy to be better spent on something productive. You never got anywhere being upset and bitching to your friends and just being upset every day when you come home. It keeps you stuck. But acceptance actually allows you to get unstuck because now you're free to put your energy towards, I don't know, building relationships in your home, creating a career, helping out other people, volunteering, I don't know, working out, putting energy and time into a hobby that you really
or
like
your
that makes
family,
you happy.
just spending time with your family.
Yeah,
and
relationships.
Just,
and
just having
mhm.
a good time.
Yeah. And acceptance also allows you to lay down all those heavy burdens that you just carry around. You're tense all the time. You have a headache all the time. Everything feels really heavy. And when you can just accept something for what it is, you can lay that down. You don't have to carry it anymore. And it does feel lighter. It feels freeing.
Well, the other thing too, that goes real far in our blended families. But again, going back to that social media thing again real quick, if you're feeling this and you can pinpoint it like it's coming from social media, it's coming from people that I follow or I do, maybe it's time to take a break from that. Maybe this feeling is coming from work and you don't like your work and it's not what you have been there for, and you can find a different type of job. Pinpoint where this is coming from, where
what is coming from.
This unagreeance, like the negativity that comes from all the disagreements. I know we're talking about within blended families, but a lot of times,
like what you can accept,
what you can't, yeah, and those around you that you are disagreeing with or that you need to learn to accept. In your blended family, you need to work on that. But maybe you're getting a lot of this negativity from your social media accounts and from, outside sources, going out with your friends and having girls' night every Friday night or having guys' day every Sunday or whatever it is that you're doing, and you're picking all this up from other places. There's some things that you can cut out in life. Like,
yeah.
let's try to not cut out our families. Let's try to not carry these burdens around with us and cut out those outside sources so we can focus more on our family. Like let's work on our families before we work on those outside sources. Why are you staring at me like that?
Okay. Work on.
It's like 9:00 at night on a Sunday night,
just
and I have
trying to
been working
follow.
all day,
Yeah.
and I didn't
So
even know what the
social
topic
media.
was.
I'm just going back to maybe to get off social media if it's feeding their
Ego.
ego.
I'm just throwing out words now.
Okay. Okay.
Frankenstein.
Okay. Acceptance delivers you from pain caused by fighting for something you aren't going to attain or have. It's very painful when you truly believe or want something and you don't get it. We learned this as a kid. We cry over the Christmas present we didn't get when we're really little. You know, we cry over the relationship as a teenager. We really wanted to date someone and they're just not into us. And that's really painful. There's a lot of pain.
I don't know that feeling.
You just got everything you wanted.
Yeah.
But it's painful to not get what you want. It's painful to really believe in something and not be able to have it. But acceptance kind of frees you from that pain. And I think it's a really beautiful thing when you can just let it go and not be hurt anymore. Because you're a much better better person for your family when you can show up as not a hurt person. But most of us show up to our families as a hurt person from our past, or we let our past wounds bleed into like our future and our present, and we don't fix anything. And so it's just a painful mess. And when we show up as a pained individual, our family experiences that, and it's not great. So acceptance is a tool that you can use to kind of free yourself from that so you can show up for your family better and healed more. Does that make sense?
You think Marsha Brady ever dealt with this? Remember she got hit in the face with a ball and then she never would become a teen model after that? Like, there's hurt. There's the acceptance of she will never be a teen model. And then there was always Marsha.
Yes.
Okay.
I accept that as part of this podcast.
Fester.
So when we got the why, we got the definition, we got what acceptance is and what it isn't. But when is it appropriate to accept? Because I think a lot of people are probably like, well, there's some things I'm just not going to accept, right? There's deal breakers. We all have our deal breakers, which is fine, right? I'm not going to accept abuse. I'm not going to accept adultery. I'm not going to accept, you all have deal breakers that should not be accepted. So that's fine, and that's right, and that's valid. However, when is acceptance appropriate? When do we use this? Well, acceptance is when you can't control something, right? We can't control other people. If we had the power to control other people, that would be kind of a scary power to have. So we just don't have that power. We weren't born with it. We can't do it. So you can't control other people. So this is where acceptance comes into play. If you want your marriage to last and you want your family intact and it's free of abuse and adultery and all that good stuff, right? Like we're just working on acceptance and things we don't like. That's when it's appropriate to lean into acceptance. Accept that which you cannot change. Accept that which you have no control over and no power over. Otherwise, you're just going to choose living upset and hoping that your upsetness will create enough drama, chaos. Like your upset will cause upset to a degree that it changes things. That's a very toxic way to do life. Like we're just going to be upset, and I hope that my upset, elicits upsetness in other people. First of all, that's not love. I'm trying to hurt. I want my hurt to hurt others so that we change. And I think that's the expectation. But that's unhealthy and that's toxic, and that creates all kinds of other problems. So acceptance is really what we use when we know we can't change and we want to stay. If it's a deal breaker for you, then it's a deal breaker for you and you don't have to accept it. But if the goal is to keep your family and relationships intact, it's a tool to use when you can't change something or a circumstance, right? As step parents, we experience this a lot. We don't have a lot of say over what happens with our stepchildren. You know, you might have, like, for instance, my stepson's with us full time. Did I have a say in that? No. Was it something that was like we had a discussion about? Not really. Just kind of happened. But that was what needed to happen, and that was in everyone's best interest. But my point is, as step parents, we kind of have to live a life of acceptance, or we will break and our family will break. And so you could choose to be upset about something. You know, I don't have any control. Do I love seeing my kids only half the time? No. Do I have to, or am I going to spend my life upset by it? No. Like, I have to learn to accept that things are just how they are. Otherwise, I will break. Does that make sense?
Elvira.
Okay. So that's when to use acceptance. And so how? Like, okay, this is all great in theory. I don't know. What do you think? How we understand the idea and why it's good and what it is and what it isn't and all the things it can do for us and benefit us, but how do you do it? How did you learn acceptance as a kid?
It's one of those things that you learn over time. It doesn't change overnight. Like, listening to this podcast isn't going to change someone. It's learning. It's figuring out that it's something that needs to happen and pursuing it. You know, we get groomed as children. We get taught. It comes through lessons, you know, and that's what I was saying earlier. You know, it's either something that we started to learn as kids, you know, it's a habit.
You're so right. You're so right.
Thank you. That is what I'm here for, to be validated. We can go now.
Yeah, it is a habit. And the older we get, if we didn't have this habit with our upbringing, although I had to learn how to accept, I'm like going back to the only child thing. I will say I had to learn how to accept 2 households and 2 sets of rules, and I had to be one person in one
that's
household.
the thing.
You had all of
your own things. Like, you have all your own. Those were things that you had to learn. Those are things that which is different than me. It's a totally different type of upbringing. It is what was ingrained in you. It's what your habits and everything that you have done. That's your story that got you here. And just because there's other people that have had the similar upbringing as you, they were only children in a split family that only went to their dads in the summertime or for big holidays. There are so many of them, you know. My daughter has almost the kind of a similar situation. Her circumstances and who she is now are all different than yours, though, other than a few of those things that are big things. But she's growing up a completely different person than who you are, because her story has been written completely differently.
Yeah, 100%. And so when we think about acceptance and creating new habits, I think that it's always a process. What helps me and what has helped me is the idea of letting go. You know, you have to put something down before you can pick up something else. So if you're living in upset and you want acceptance because you see it's a higher quality of life to live that way, you have to kind of lay down your upset and let go. And then you can make room for acceptance to come in. Like, it's a choice not to be upset. People think that they have no choice. You totally have a choice. You can tell yourself, I'm not going to be upset by this anymore. You know, self-talk is a real thing. Like, you have to make the conscious decision to lay something down, to let something go, to stop being upset. And there's another thing that I'm going to tread lightly when I say this, but like detachment. Because really, upset is very emotional. And so I think it behooves us a lot to let go, like become a little like detached from our emotions a little bit. Not that we don't have emotions, but when you can learn to kind of let logic in and make a choice based on logic and kind of let your emotions play in the background, but not be at the forefront. And that just takes time and practice and mindfulness. It's intentional. It's something that you talk your way through. Like, am I being emotional or am I being logical right now? And let logic in a little bit and detach yourself emotionally. And then you can make a better decision to be in a place of acceptance. You see that being in a place of acceptance is far superior than being in a place of upset. But that kind of takes some detachment a little bit. And sometimes the truth is even detachment from relationships. So you can take a step back and not be in the thick of it. And so that's kind of like Eric. Like sometimes he has to detach himself from an argument so that he can go make a better choice. And really it helps me out too. I make a far better choice when I've learned that from him. It's a really good thing as long as there's like communication about what's happening.
Timeout's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing to, because I'm so emotional and I'm always shoot from the hip.
No.
But it's a good thing to detach yourself sometimes and take a step back so that you can make a better choice.
You can come out with a clear head.
Yeah.
And work some of your thoughts out ahead of time. You're like,
right?
Man, I don't really feel that way. Or
Yeah.
I'm not really as angry about that as I thought I am.
Absolutely.
Or sometimes you're like, man, that.
Or I am angry.
Or I am angrier
deserve,
than I thought I was.
And that's it.
I do deserve those spankings.
And detachment also, if you can detach from relationships, because I think we put so much pressure in blended families on relationships and everyone being blended and all this stuff. We put so much pressure that sometimes acceptance for what is, if you're not connecting with your stepchild or you're having a problem in your blended family, sometimes taking a step back and not trying to micromanage everything, not being upset about it, like kind of accepting this is where everyone's at. This is where everyone's at. This is what it is. Taking a step back and detaching from it a little bit allows space for things to unfold naturally, which is a good thing. It's not forced. It's not micromanaged. People don't feel the pressure. And usually when things unfold naturally, they happen for our good. Things turn out the way they should. Things always seem to just work out like they should. You always say that.
Eddie freaking Munster.
So being able to detach allows you to like accept that things are the way they are, and that creates space for them to unfold naturally. Does that make sense?
It does. Annabelle and I were talking about favorite characters today. That's why I'm referencing all of these. We rode home from church together, got some Taco Bell, and talked about.
How was that? Was she good for you?
She's always good. She's a great kid.
Sorry, she's always good for you. That's nice.
She is, though. I mean, she really is. Like, I never have problems with her.
It's really funny because normally our kids are really good for the other step-parent.
Normally.
Yeah, like, I mean, really, like, they're on their best. It's interesting.
Yeah.
But then your son drives you nuts. My kids drive me nuts. And
they
then
all drive
when
me nuts.
they all drive you nuts.
Arr.
Except for Abby. She's great all the time. They have no problems.
Are you mocking us?
No, she's great.
Are you mocking me? Buzz, look, an alien. Are we done?
I'm just making sure. Oh,
Are you guys
know
still
what?
listening? I'm like half asleep here.
Okay. One final thing I want to say is that really acceptance is a key part of like finding your inner peace. And so if that's something you really, really want, and going back to our faith, the important part of faith also, it teaches you these fundamentals. Like Eric was saying earlier, like as Christians, we're called to love all people. A lot of Christians may not act like that. And a lot of people think.
Yeah, no.
That's what we're called to do. And that's biblical. But that's the kind of principle, that acceptance that helps you in blended families. The principles that our faith has taught us, if applied to our blended families, would be a recipe to keep us together and to get us through even the darkest of times. So if you have any questions about this, or you guys want to chime in on how you think about acceptance, and if you guys have any, tips or tricks for us, please comment below on any platform you're listening or viewing this on. And we just appreciate you guys.
Give that thumbs up, subscribe, and book that breakthrough session at Becoming Heard Now on aisle 3. Right. Becoming Heard Now at gmail.com. And we will see you guys next time.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
Thanks for being here with us. You guys, sorry I'm so crazy tonight. I'm pretty much tired.
Elvira.
That's how I ended it. Bye.